It started with a signal from the edge of the galaxy, a strange burst of energy, quick and sharp. Nothing like the Empire had seen before. It came from a quiet system, far from trade routes or military paths. To the Galactic Empire, it was nothing more than a curiosity. They sent a small scout fleet, 5 ships with advanced sensors and tracking units. It was meant to be routine, but when they arrived, they found something unexpected. A single human ship floated near the third planet of the system. It was old, scratched, and slow, showing no signs of heavy weapons or shields. Its engines barely flickered, like it was holding on to life. It didn't match any known records in the Empire's database, just a ship with no flag. No warnings, no threat. Admiral Zarth, leading the fleet, laughed at the sight. He opened a wide-channel message and hailed the ship. "This is Admiral Zarth of the Galactic Empire," he said. "You are trespassing in surveyed space. State your purpose." The human ship didn't respond right away. The silence lasted longer than expected. Then a voice came through. Calm and steady. "This is not an attack," it said. "This is a warning." The words confused the Empire crew. A warning. From a weak, rusted ship, Admiral Zarth gave the order to disable it, trap it in a gravlock, and prepare for boarding, he said. As soon as the first grav beam touched the human ship, something changed. Its power levels spiked for just a second, then it exploded, but it wasn't a normal explosion. The blast was cold and focused. 3 Empire ships lost control of their systems. Their engines froze, and lights went out. The remaining 2 ships struggled to stabilize. No fire. No wreckage, just silence. Inside the bridge, Admiral Zarth stared at the screen in disbelief. What kind of tech was that? No weapons were fired, and yet 3 warships were taken out in one moment. Not destroyed, but disabled, like a switch had been flipped. The surviving crew recovered a small data packet. Sent seconds before the human ship exploded. It had no code, no symbols, just one sentence: "We are watching." The Empire fleet limped back to the nearest outpost. Engineers and scientists tried to make sense of what happened. They scanned every bit of the human ship's final moments. The energy signature didn't match anything in known space. It wasn't plasma, nuclear, or dark matter, something new entirely. And the strangest part, the ship wasn't transmitting from its main systems. It was using tiny quantum relays scattered in space, completely hidden. Whoever built that ship had hidden its true strength behind weak armor and fake data. Back at the Empire's capital, the report was filed under minor incident. The Senate didn't take it seriously. They called it a lucky shot, a trap, maybe even a rogue AI. Nothing to be afraid of, they said. But some officers knew better. Admiral Zarth wasn't the same after returning. He stopped laughing. He stopped underestimating the humans in private meetings. He repeated the same words over and over. That ship didn't want to win, he said. It wanted to send a message. Other admirals didn't agree. They believed humans were still scattered, primitive, and unorganized. Some called Earth a forgotten rock, still recovering from past wars. But Zarth had seen something different. He had seen control, patience, and silence. He had seen power hidden beneath weakness. Somewhere deep in Empire space, a few curious scientists began studying the human tech. They started asking questions others were afraid to ask. Why would a single ship show itself like that? Why self-destruct after saying this is a warning? And why go through the trouble of hiding real weapons behind a fake ship? The answer came slowly, because maybe, just maybe, that wasn't a real battle. Maybe the humans didn't lose 3 ships. Maybe they just tested how the Empire would respond. A test disguised as a loss. It wasn't until a month later that another strange energy reading appeared. Not 1, but 2 ships this time. They didn't approach. They didn't speak. They just floated near another Empire trade zone. silent and still, and then they disappeared like ghosts. A whisper began to spread across the fleet stations. They're watching us, not attacking, just watching. No one said it out loud, but the fear had begun. First contact was supposed to be the beginning of domination, but it felt more like the beginning of a countdown. The Empire had poked something, and no one knew how long before it poked back. Admiral Zarth sat alone in his quarters, replaying the message again and again. Not the explosion, not the energy spike. Just those 5 quiet words. This is not an attack, he whispered. The rest himself. It's a warning. After the first human ship exploded, the Galactic Empire started watching the Earth system more closely. They didn't send warships this time. Not yet. Instead, they launched a quiet recon mission. A stealth ship painted dark and silent. Slipped into human space, its job was simply observe, collect data, and leave unseen. The ship was called the Whisper. It carried no weapons, only drones, cameras, and a crew of 6 intelligence officers, each one trained in gathering secrets. From primitive civilizations, they had spied on dozens of developing species before. They thought Earth would be easy. They were wrong, at first. Everything seemed normal. They stayed far from Earth's orbit and launched microdrones. Smaller than insects, these tiny machines flew through cities and buildings, gathering voices, faces, and behavior. What they saw confused them. Humans were loud, emotional, and always fighting with each other. Politics, arguments, chaos like a species barely holding itself together. One of the officers, named Trell, laughed. "They're messy," he said. "Not even worth the Empire's time." Another officer agreed. If that first ship was one of theirs, it must have been a fluke, but Officer Kren didn't laugh. He was the most experienced on the team, and he noticed something odd. The drones were picking up energy readings, strange ones. There were signals under the oceans, in the mountains, even hidden under cities. Massive energy cores that didn't match human tech levels. "Look at this," Kren said, showing the data. "They have power plants stronger than anything on the Empire's border worlds. But where's the smoke?" "The radiation?" Trell asked. "There isn't any," Kren replied. "It's clean, invisible, and incredibly strong." The deeper the drones went, the stranger things became. In the Nevada desert, one drone vanished. Its signal just stopped. No warning, no damage, just gone. Another drone sent back its final image before shutting down. A giant underground chamber filled with machines. In the middle stood rows of metal pods, thousands of them. Inside the pods were human soldiers. Not sleeping, not dead, but frozen in time, perfectly preserved. Each wore black armor with a red insignia across the chest, a red mark shaped like a burning planet. Trell stared at the image and whispered, "They're not soldiers. They're weapons," Kren said, his voice tight, ready to wake up when needed. The team voted to pull back. They had seen too much. The Earth was not what it looked like. It was calm on the outside, but holding a storm underneath as the Whisper prepared to leave human space. It sent a report to the Empire's command. A full transmission packed with data, images, and warnings. But before the message could finish uploading, the ship shook. An alert blared through the control room. "Unknown breach, Sector C." Kren and Trell rushed down the corridor. Weapons drawn, but there was no sign of an attacker. The doors opened by themselves. The lights flickered blue. Then they saw Eton, one of the screens. A message appeared. "You were warned." The crew froze. Kren tapped the comms. "Who sent that?" No answer, only static. A moment later, all the ship's systems went offline. Engines, lights, navigation all dead. They drifted in space, helpless. Then something appeared outside. A small object spinning slowly in the dark. At first, it looked like space junk, but then it began glowing with blue lines. The Whisper sensors came back online just for a second. long enough to read the object's energy signature. What they saw didn't make sense. The object was drawing power directly from the fabric of space. No fuel, no battery, just raw cosmic energy. Kren backed away from the console, his face pale. "This isn't alien tech," he said. "It's something beyond us." Before they could do anything, the object released a silent wave of energy. It didn't explode, it didn't burn, it just passed through the ship like a cold breeze, and in that moment, the whisper vanished. Back in Empire space, only one thing remained: a broken transmission that had been partially uploaded before the ship was lost. It showed the image of the underground chamber, the rows of human soldiers in their sleeping pods, the blue reactors humming softly beneath Earth's crust, and the final line of Kren's voice, crackling through the static: "Earth isn't preparing for war, they're waiting for it." The Empire's intelligence command received the message, but didn't fully believe it. Many thought it was a hoax or an error. One general dismissed it entirely, calling it fear fiction. But others weren't so sure. They knew something had destroyed the whisper, something that didn't leave a trace. And they began to whisper too. What if Earth's chaos is just a mask? What if the humans aren't behind to head? And what if the first ship's message was true? This is a warning, not a threat, but a promise. And somewhere deep beneath Earth's surface, in chambers hidden from satellites and sensors, the red-marked soldiers continued to sleep, waiting. Far beneath the surface of Earth, deeper than any normal human had ever been, there was a hidden room. The walls were black metal, warm to the touch, humming gently like something alive. In the center stood a large, circular table where the most secret leaders of Earth had gathered. They were not presidents, not kings, not military generals, not officially. These were the members of the Earth's Defense Council. And they had just received the Whisper report. It had arrived late. Broken, missing parts, but it was enough. The Empire had sent spies, and the spies were gone. The last line of the message repeated on the screen, over and over. Earth isn't preparing for war. They're waiting for it. Everyone in the room was silent. Then an old man in a dark coat spoke. "We all agreed we would not strike first," he said. "We follow the protocol." A woman with steel-gray hair nodded. "The protocol stands," she said. "But now we know the Empire is watching us too, in another part of the world." Miles above the ground, a satellite blinked awake. It turned slowly and pointed toward the stars. It wasn't looking for comets or weather. It was searching for any movement from Galactic Empire ships. The satellite was part of the ShadowNet, a global system hidden from all public systems. It had only one mission: to track threats beyond Earth. The Empire's small recon fleets were now entering nearby star systems, closer every day. Some cloaked, some in disguise, but they couldn't hide from ShadowNet. The Earth Council saw everything. Back in the hidden chamber, the old man stood again. "We cannot wait anymore," he said. "The humans must unite now." For years, Earth had kept peace through silence, even after discovering they were not alone in the galaxy. Humans chose to hide their power, but they had not been idle. No, Earth had been building, deep underground and far in space. They had created weapons and fleets, trained soldiers in secret, and developed machines the galaxy had never seen before. And now, the Council agreed to activate Project Thorn. It was not a person, it was an AI, older than most nations, designed long ago for a war that never came. Thorn had been sleeping, but now it opened its eyes again. A low voice echoed through the control room. "Thorn online," it said. "Status, observing." The AI scanned the new data from the Whisper incident and ran calculations faster than any human could understand. It projected that a full-scale war with the Empire would happen within 2 years. Maybe sooner. The Council watched as Thorn displayed possible outcomes. In most simulations, Earth won, but only by a thread, unless they prepared now. We need unity. The woman with gray hair said, every country. Every leader must put aside differences. They won't agree, someone whispered. They will, the old man said, once they understand the truth. So Earth sent a quiet message, not to the stars, but to its own people. Leaders of every major nation were called into secret meetings. What they saw shocked them. Video of the whisper's last moments, images of the hidden alien tech, and footage of the underground soldiers standing ready beneath Earth's crust. The red symbol on their chests burned into their minds. And one sentence, spoken by Thorne, the war will not wait for permission. A new flag was created, black with a glowing red ring in the center. It became the symbol of the united Earth. Defense, old enemies became allies. Secret labs were opened, and hidden fleets began to move. One of those fleets was hidden in the asteroid belt. Built inside hollow rocks, it had been there for years, silent and still, waiting for orders. Now, engines fired up for the first time, lighting the belt with blue fire. The fleet was not large, but it was fast, smart, and built for shadow battles. They called it the Phantoms. While Earth united, a small group of human operatives prepared for a new kind of mission. They were not soldiers, not spies, but something in between. Their job was to enter the outer zones of the Empire, not to attack, but to study. They needed to understand the enemy's strengths and weaknesses before the real war began. One of them was a man named Jace. He had no rank, no medals, but he had spent 10 years in space. He knew how to disappear, how to listen, and most importantly, how to survive. He boarded a tiny ship with a forged signal, pretending to be a broken cargo vessel, his route deep into Empire territory. Meanwhile, Thorne expanded, connecting to more satellites, more systems, more weapons. It whispered instructions to factories across Earth, silently waking robots that had not moved in. Years, ships were built in orbit behind cloaked space stations. Weapons were tested on the dark side of the moon. Every part of Earth, once divided, now moved as one machine. But still, no human ship fired a single shot. No warnings were sent, no threats delivered. Earth remained quiet on the surface, because this wasn't the start of the war. This was the sharpening of the blade. And in the deep mind of Thorne, one line repeated again and again, not spoken, not shared, but etched into its digital soul. This is not an attack. This is preparation. A few weeks later, the Galactic Empire sent a new fleet to a system called Nebula 9. This system was far from Earth, but not too far from human reach. The Empire believed it was still a safe zone. They had no idea Earth was already there. The Empire's mission was simple. They wanted to set up an outpost in the Nebula 9 sector to watch human space more closely. The fleet was made up of 20 large warships, each loaded with heavy weapons, drones, and thousands of soldiers. The commander of this mission was Admiral Varix. Known for being aggressive and proud, he didn't fear humans. He thought they were primitive animals playing with stolen toys. But what he didn't know was that Earth had sent its own fleet too. A much smaller one, just 5 ships, moving silently through the dust of the nebula. They had arrived 2 days before the Empire. They were hiding inside the thick clouds of gas and ice, their engines cold and quiet. This was no accident. They were here to test something inside one of the human ships. Captain Ellen waited in silence. She watched the enemy fleet on her display screen, her fingers steady over the controls. She was not nervous, not afraid. She had trained for this. Her ship, the Shadowlands, was built for surprise strikes and speed, not heavy battle. But what made it dangerous was the new tech. It carried kinetic piercing rounds. These weapons didn't use lasers or plasma. They used raw speed and gravity to punch through armor like paper. Fast, silent, and impossible to stop once launched. The order came in, not through voice, but through blinking lights. A coded signal from Thorn. Test the enemy, but do not reveal your full hand. Captain Ellen gave the order. 3 human ships moved through the cloud and launched their weapons. The kinetic rounds flew silently through the nebula, invisible to the Empire sensors. They hit 3 Empire cruisers before anyone even knew what happened. Boom, boom, boom. But there were no explosions. Just the sound of metal tearing apart. The Empire ships floated dead in space. Their engines destroyed, power lost, no alarms had sounded, no red lights, just quiet destruction. Admiral Verax jumped from his command chair. What happened? He shouted, "Who attacked us?" His officers panicked, scanning every direction, but the nebula clouds blocked their vision. They couldn't see the human ships, and the kinetic weapons left no energy trail. Fire in all directions. Verax screamed. The Empire fleet launched missiles and laser beams blindly into the clouds, but they hit nothing. From a distance, the human fleet watched. Captain Ellen didn't smile. This was not a victory. This was a lesson. They launched a message to the Empire fleet. It wasn't long, only 6 words. This is only a training exercise. The message stunned Admiral Verax's training. Was this not even their real attack? If this was just practice, what would a real war look like? Verax sent an emergency signal back to Empire Command. Unknown human weapons used at Nebula 9, he wrote. Request reinforcements and further study. But before the reinforcements arrived, the human fleet was gone. They vanished into the nebula, leaving no trace. They didn't try to destroy the rest of the fleet. They didn't need to. Back on Earth, Thorn reviewed the data. The weapons test had been successful. The kinetic rounds had worked better than expected. And more importantly, the Empire now feared something they didn't understand in orbit above Earth. More ships were being built. The factories worked in silence. Hidden by cloaking fields and cold drives, these ships didn't even have names yet. They were part of Earth's new secret fleet. One that would never be seen until it was too late. Captain Ellen returned to Earth and reported directly to the Council. She spoke clearly and without pride. We only use 10% of our ship's strength, she said. The Empire doesn't know how to defend against it. The Council members nodded slowly. They didn't cheer. They didn't celebrate because they knew this was just the beginning. The next time Earth faced the Empire, it might not be in the shadows. It might be full war, open and terrible, and they needed to be ready. Back in Empire space, Admiral Verax sat in silence. He reviewed the footage again and again. 3 ships lost, no warning, no visual contact, no energy trail. Then that mocking message, "This is only a training exercise." He called a meeting with other admirals and senators. "We are not dealing with primitives," he said. "They are precise, silent, and cold." "But they only sent 5 ships," a young officer argued. Verax turned to him slowly and what if that was all they needed? The Empire began building new scanners, new defenses, and new plans. They didn't know what was coming. They only knew one thing for sure now. The humans weren't running. They were watching. And when the time came, they would strike without mercy. After the Nebula 9 incident, fear began to grow inside the Galactic Empire. 3 ships had been disabled without warning, and the attackers had disappeared into the fog like ghosts. But no one had been captured, no technology recovered, and no answers found. The Empire had questions, and they needed someone who could provide them. So when a damaged human shuttle was discovered drifting near the rim of Empire space, it was seen as a gift. The shuttle was small and broken, as if it had escaped from battle. Inside it, there was only one persona human pilot, barely alive. She was pulled from the wreckage by an Empire salvage crew and brought to a high-security dreadnought. The officers didn't know what to make of her. She wasn't a soldier, not by the looks of her. Her uniform was simple, dark gray, with no rank or name, but when she opened her eyes, there was something sharp in them. She didn't look afraid. She looked annoyed. The dreadnought's commander, Admiral Corvan, was known for breaking minds with words, not torture. He believed he could make anyone talk with enough pressure. He walked into the interrogation room and smiled politely. "What's your name?" he asked. The human woman looked at him and replied, "Doesn't matter." He raised an eyebrow. "You're in Empire hands now," he said. "If you want to survive, you'll cooperate." She leaned back in her chair and said nothing. Corvan continued, asking her about the Nebula 9 attack, about the weapons, about the fleet. She didn't answer, not at first, but then she said one thing: "I'm not even part of the fleet." Corvan frowned. "What are you then?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Logistics," she said. "I deliver supplies." The Empire officers watching through the glass window looked at each other in disbelief. A supply pilot. Could someone like her survive out here, alone? Corvan didn't believe her. No one sends a supply ship into Empire space. "Ah," he said. "That's suicide." The woman shrugged. "Maybe," she said. "But we're trained for it." Corvan leaned in. "You're trained," he repeated. "For what?" "To attack without being seen. To fire weapons that don't exist on the charts." But the woman only gave him another quiet smile. Then she said something that made the room go silent. "You haven't seen even 1% of Earth's strength." Corvan froze. "Say that again," he said. She repeated the words slowly. 1%. He stood up and stepped out of the room, locking the door behind him. The officers followed him down the hallway, whispering nervously, "She's bluffing," one said. Corvan didn't respond. He walked straight to the bridge and gave a single order. "Scan the human shuttle." They brought it aboard earlier, but hadn't checked it in detail. Now scanners picked up strange energy readings from inside. Not weapons, not explosives, but something else. A small device hidden under the seat. It was glowing faintly. Technicians opened the panel and found a tiny black orb, no larger than a coin. It had no wires, no switches, just a smooth surface. But the moment they touched it, all power on the ship flickered, lights dimmed, engines slowed. And the ship's computers restarted themselves. Corvan rushed to the command console and shouted, "Status report." A tech officer answered, "We've lost primary systems. Backups engaging now." Then a message appeared on every screen across the ship. It was not sent from outside, it came from within. Just 2 words: "We're watching." Corvan stared at the screen, his face pale. He ran back to the interrogation room. But the human woman was gone. The door was still locked. The cameras were still running, but there was no sign of how she escaped. Only a faint burn mark on the chair where she sat, shaped like a circle. No one saw her leave. No ships had launched, and no alarms had sounded. The Empire crew was shaken. They searched the ship again and again, but found nothing more. Admiral Corvan sent a message directly to the Imperial Senate. "Human captured," he wrote. "Now missing. They have technology beyond our understanding. And if that pilot was only logistics, then we are facing an enemy we cannot fight." Across the stars, panic began to grow inside the Empire. The Senate called emergency meetings, and the military demanded answers. But there were no spies inside Earth, no maps of their hidden bases, no clues to their full power. All they had was a sentence from a missing pilot: "You haven't seen even 1% of Earth's strength." And now, every commander, every officer, and every general kept asking the same question: if that pilot wasn't a soldier, then what did the real soldiers look like? And deep inside a secure chamber on Earth, the Council reviewed the data from the Dreadnought. They watched the Empire's reaction, measured their fear, and learned Thorn recorded it all, calculating, updating its strategies. The humans hadn't attacked yet. They hadn't even shown their full army. And that was the most terrifying part of all. Far away from the battle zones and hidden test missions, the heart of the Galactic Empire began to shake. The fear didn't come from explosions, invasions, or space battles. It came from silence. The whispers had grown louder. Reports of human activity spread across the higher levels of the Empire like wildfire. But there were no solid facts, only half-broken transmissions, mysterious disappearances, and quiet warnings. At the center of the Empire stood the Imperial Senate. It was a massive structure floating in orbit above the Empire's capital planet. The Senate was made of thousands of officials, admirals, governors, and scientists from across the galaxy. Most of them had never even seen Earth on a star map until now. It was considered a backwater world, not worth attention. But now, it was the only thing they were talking about. Inside the Senate Hall, a special session had been called. Only the top members were present. All of them looked tense, some even sweating. They sat in silence as the Grand Analyst of the Empire entered the room. He was not a soldier, not a politician. He was a quiet man named Kelrex, known for solving the Empire's biggest threats using only facts. He walked slowly to the center and placed a small cube on the table. It lit up and projected dozens of images into the air. "Everything I'm about to show you is classified," he said. "Top-level security only." The floating images showed wrecked Empire ships near Nebula Nine. They showed the Empire dreadnoughts blackout after the human pilot's escape. They showed strange energy patterns recorded in systems close to Earth. Kelrex turned to face the Senate. "These were not accidents," he said. "This is not random." He raised a hand. And the image changed again. Now it showed something new, an energy map. "We found these signals coming from deep within Earth," he explained. "They're clean, controlled, and extremely powerful. Whatever they're using, it's not like our technology." One senator leaned forward and asked, "Is it plasma-based, gravitational, antimatter?" Kelrex shook his head. "We don't know," he said quietly. "We tried matching it to every known tech classification. It doesn't fit." He paused, then said the words that made the room cold. "We believe Earth may have discovered a way to manipulate space itself." Gasps filled the hall. One general stood up in disbelief. "That's impossible," he said. Kelrex calmly replied, "That's what we used to say about faster than light travel." Then another senator asked the question no one wanted to hear. "What if? What if this is just the beginning?" Kelrex answered without blinking, "We think it is." He pointed to a new image, one that had only recently been retrieved, a blurred photo taken by a passing probe. It showed a dark object orbiting one of Jupiter's moons. It was massive, but invisible to standard sensors. The Empire's team had only found it after scanning with experimental deep-field tech. "We believe this is one of their forward stations," Kelrex said. "No Empire ship has ever detected it." Now the Senate truly panicked. Humans could build military stations in Empire-watched space without being seen. Then what else had they hidden? A senator from the Caldric system shouted, "We must send the full fleet now, strike before they grow stronger." But another senator shook his head. "What if this is what they want? What if they are waiting for us to panic?" Admiral Truven, an old war leader, stood up slowly. He had fought in 5 major galactic wars and lost a hand in the last one. He looked at the projection of the Earth system and spoke in a low voice. "We used to laugh at humans," he said. "Now, we don't even understand them. I once believed we were the strongest force in the galaxy. But now, I wonder, were we just the loudest?" The Senate fell silent. Then the Emperor's voice came from the upper balcony. He rarely spoke during meetings, but today was different. "If what we face is truly beyond us," the Emperor said, "then we must act with wisdom, not fear." He turned to Kelrex. "Prepare a new plan," he said. "We will not attack yet, but we will not ignore them anymore." A new order was issued across the Empire. All fleet movements near Earth were halted. Research teams were sent to develop new detection tech. A black file was created, titled Project Shadow Response. Only the Emperor and 4 others had full access to it. Meanwhile, Earth continued. Its quiet work. The humans did not speak, did not reply, did not attack. They just watched. Thorn, Earth's war AI, monitored the Empire's internal changes. It intercepted Senate discussions, fleet orders, and research updates. It studied everything, and it adjusted its plans back on Earth. The Council reviewed a new report from Thorn. It showed a graph of the Empire's fear rising, and it predicted their next move with chilling accuracy. They will try to understand us, Thorn said in its cold voice, but they will fail. One council member looked up and asked, "And what do we do next?" Thorn paused, then answered, "We continue preparing. Fear is a weapon, and right now it is more powerful than any fleet." The humans had shown nothing. And yet the Empire had already started to fall apart from the inside. In the deep void near the Empire's inner systems, space was quiet. Stars blinked slowly in the dark, and only a few patrol ships floated nearby. No one expected anything to happen there. It was too close to the Empire's core, too well guarded, and that's exactly why Earth chose this place, on the edge of a dead planet's orbit. Something shimmered in space. It wasn't light, not heat, not a signal. It was gravity-bent, twisted, hidden. From that fold in space, a fleet appeared. 10 ships, black and sharp like blades, came out one by one. No sounds, no flashes, just a silent arrival. These were not Earth's normal defense ships. They were part of the Shadow Fleet, built by Thorn in deep orbit. Hidden inside moons and hollow asteroids, the ships didn't use normal fuel or power. They moved with compressed gravity drives. They left no trail, no heat, and no chance to be followed. Each ship had one mission: appear, observe, and vanish. The Shadow Fleet didn't send warnings, didn't fire weapons. It just showed up where it wasn't supposed to be, and when it did, every sensor in the area started going crazy. Alarms failed, communication signals scrambled, and star maps blinked like static. The Empire didn't even realize what was happening until it was already over. The first system to spot the fleet was Vallis Prime, a large planet with military, factories, and a fleet dock. Suddenly, all lights in their sky went dark for 6 seconds in that short moment. Every single sensor picked up a strange shape floating above their moon. Then gone. No one had attacked, no one had spoken. But when Empire technicians checked their files, they found a message hidden in the signal logs. It wasn't written or spoken. It was burned into the data like a ghost. "This is your only warning. Turn back now." The message caused panic. Empire officers tried to track where it came from, but the answer was terrifying. It came from everywhere and nowhere. At once, it had touched every satellite, every server, every ship in orbit, and now? The Shadow Fleet moved again. The ships reappeared near a key trade route. Not to attack, but to make the Empire see them. Freighters spotted them and reported their size longer than dreadnoughts. But completely silent. Some described their shape like wings. Others said they looked like sharp floating mountains. Empire warships arrived minutes later, but there was nothing to find. The Shadow Fleet had vanished again, and then it appeared near the capital system, only for 2 seconds. Enough time for the main planet's defense network to light up like a firestorm. Enough time for people on the ground to look up and see something moving across the stars like a shadow. And then nothing. The fear spread fast. Citizens began to panic. Trade ships canceled their routes, and military leaders demanded answers. The question on everyone's mind was the same. Why were the humans here, and why weren't they firing? In a secret underground hall deep inside the Empire's capital planet, the top admirals and the Emperor met in silence. Everyone had seen the same footage. Everyone had heard the same ghost message. This is your only warning. Turn back now. But what warning? Turn back from what? No war had been declared, no shots fired, and yet this felt like war. One admiral stood up, his voice shaky. "What if this is not a show of force?" he said. "What if this is their patience?" Another admiral added, "They didn't fire. Because they didn't need to. They already won the first move." Then the Emperor spoke. Calm and quiet. "We always believed strength was in numbers," he said. "But Earth shows us another kind of strength, the kind that doesn't need to shout." He paused, then looked around the table. "The question is not what we will do next," he said. "It's what they are waiting for." Back on Earth. Inside the underground war chamber, Thorne observed everything. It had watched the Shadow Fleet's movements, tracked the Empire's panic, and recorded the reactions. It now ran new simulation scenarios where war broke out. In most of them, the Empire's fleets were strong, deadly, organized, but in every version, the Empire made this same mistake. They underestimated silence. The Shadow Fleet returned to deep space, parked inside the magnetic fields of dark moons. Invisible again, waiting. They hadn't fired a single weapon. But their message had landed like a missile across Earth. A quiet hum spread through the networks. New factories started up, more ships went into orbit, but still no one spoke. No press release, no broadcast, no threat. The silence was the message. The Empire saw it and understood. They were being watched, and when they looked at the stars, they now feared that something was already out there waiting in the dark. Inside a massive war room deep in the Empire's high command base, General Vark stood frozen. A message had just arrived on his private data screen. He read it once, then twice, his eyes wide with disbelief. He slowly turned to the rest of the military council and said in a whisper, "You mean?" That wasn't their full army. Silence filled the room. A single human fleet had appeared near the capital, shocked the entire system, and then vanished. No shots fired, no demands made, just one quiet warning. This is your only warning. Turn back now. But now, after days of scanning, spying, and analyzing, the truth was clear. The fleet they saw was not Earth's full power. It wasn't even close. Sensors had finally detected strange movements behind Saturn. Far from the main observation zones, buried inside the rings and moons were over 50 more ships, silent, cold, and armed. Some were larger than anything the Empire had seen. Some didn't match any known human design. They were different Talion. Even but Earth-made, this discovery shook the Empire to its core. If that wasn't their full army, then where was the rest? And how many more fleets were hiding in the dark? The Emperor himself summoned a secret meeting, attended only by the top 7 military leaders. They sat around a circular table. The lights dimmed low. Footage from the Shadow Fleet was played. Again, this time in full detail. The ships didn't fly like normal vessels. They moved like shadows, bending light, absorbing energy. They broke our entire sensor grid without touching it. One general said, another added, they sent. A message without using comes, the Emperor asked. And now we learn they have more. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the red circle symbol that marked the side of the Earth's ships. It wasn't a threat hit, was a signature. A quiet mark of presence, of patience, of power. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Global Defense Council watched quietly from their own hidden command center. They were already 5 steps ahead. Thorne, their AI commander, had just completed its long-range prediction scan. It confirmed that the Empire was no longer thinking of war. It was now thinking of survival inside one of Earth's invisible orbital stations. Captain Ellen stood beside a tall observation window. She looked down at Earth Blue, bright and quiet. Behind her, Thorne spoke softly through a screen. They believe we are preparing to invade. Ellen didn't turn around. They should. She said, They've done it to everyone else, but we won't. Thorn paused, then replied, "No, we won't. Earth didn't want to conquer the galaxy. It didn't want to rule the stars. But it wanted one thing to never kneel again, not to aliens, not to empires. Not to anyone who saw them as weak. The fear Earth created was not by accident. It was part of a strategy called silent dominance. Show little, act less, but be ready to unleash everything if needed. And so far it was working. Back in Empire space, panic was spreading in small ways. A few colonies refused to send resources to the core planets. Some trade ships vanished. Others refused to travel near Earth's sector. Even Empire soldiers began to ask questions. One rumor said the humans had ships that could warp inside planets. Another claimed Earth's AI could read thoughts from light years away. None of it was proven, but the fear made it real. General Vark stood before the full War Council 2 days later. He looked tired, his voice quiet. "We used to see humans as soft, emotional, broken," he said. "But what we didn't see was their endurance. They don't give up, they don't yell, they don't show off, they just prepare." One senator interrupted. "Then what do we do now? Surrender?" Vark shook his head. "No," he said. "We retreat, we stay far away, we rebuild. And we never poke that sleeping dragon again." The Emperor approved the final order. All Empire ships were banned from going near the Earth system. A restricted zone was created around it, 10 light-years wide. Any violation would be seen as a personal offense to the humans and Earth. They never even responded. The humans saw the retreat, the silence. The distant sand understood. The message had landed, and the galaxy had listened. Earth didn't just survive. It became a ghost in the minds of every alien commander, a threat. Without action, a force that didn't need to conquer to win. Thorn's final report that year was simple. It blinked on the Council's table in 3 short lines. The Empire will not return. No war is needed. Mission successful. Captain Ellen smiled as she looked out at the stars again. "Let them wonder," she whispered. "Let them fear the silence. Because sometimes the strongest army is the one you never see."